Function y is equal to x squared minus 2px plus q has the minimum vertex when x is equal to 1. Solve for p plus q, and that is our question. Before we solve for this question, let's think about what it is to be the vertex right over here. Definition of vertex: it is a coordinate which contains x comma y uh like a normal coordinate. It contains the x comma y, and it can be either maximum or a minimum point, and that depends on the sign of a. The meaning of it contains x comma y, that means if we convert this into our normal coordinate, it will going to be x comma y. And we have talked about a lot of times that x is our input of our function, where we input a specific value, and with that input there should be a specific output of that function. And this is what x and y means. And let's think about the cases where the function has a maximum or a minimum point. And they said it depends on sign of a. And let's think about what it is, the a. A is a leading coefficient of a function. And we know that for that a, when the a is greater than 0, which means when the a is a positive value, the graph will go upward. The graph is going upward, which means the graph will look something like this, that keeps going up, which means only the minimum point will going to exist. This is a case where the vertex becomes a minimum point of the function. Let's think about when the vertex becomes a maximum point of a coordinate of a function. It's a case when the a value, which is the leading coefficient of our function, is less than 0. And if it is less than 0, which means when the a value is negative, the graph will go downward. The graph is going downward, which means the graph will look something like this, and it keeps going down. And this means only the maximum point right over here will going to exist. And this is what a affects to our graph. It affects the type of the graph, whether it has a vertex, a minimum, or the maximum point. We call minimum and maximum point the addition of these two letters, the cases. We call it into a vertex, and this is what the vertex means. So let's get through our original question. And before that, we know that vertex is obviously going to be x comma y if we convert this into our original coordinate. So our question is, there is a quadratic function. Quadratic function y is equal to x squared minus 2px plus q, and it has a minimum vertex. Let's write our function down at first. So our function is, our function is y is equal to x squared minus 2px plus q. And we can know a lot of things from here. That we know that the a is a leading coefficient, which means it should be a coefficient of the highest degree power, which means it should be a coefficient of the x squared term. But in this case, the x squared term's coefficient is just 1, which means when you graph this, it will only contain a minimum point. And the minimum point will going to be the vertex of this function. The reason why this will going to be the minimum point, the reason is because the leading coefficient, we'll just call it a, is positive, which means it is greater than 0. And the question said you're going to have a minimum vertex when the x value is equal to 1. So we can kind of like analyze that the vertex is usually formed by x comma y. But in this case, the x will going to be 1, so that we can make a vertex. So we're trying to find the value. Where we found the value of 1, which is the x value. But our ultimate goal of this question is solve for p plus q. The p is a term right over here, and the q is a constant. So let's get through our question. But they said we're trying to find the value of y at first, but they said it has a minimum vertex. And the minimum vertex, they didn't mention about it there, but the question is just supposed to say the minimum vertex of 5. The minimum vertex of 5, the case when you say minimum vertex of 5, they're mentioning about the y coordinate, which means we figure out that x is equal to 1. We don't have to substitute to find the value of y. They said they gave us the value 5 as a y value. So we figure out the minimum value, which will going to be our vertex of our function, which is 1, 5. Basically, we cannot solve for anything from this y is equal to x squared minus 2px plus q. So I'll just write it down first. Y is equal to x squared minus 2px plus q. We cannot exactly solve it, but we got our vertex, which is 1, 5. So there is 1, 5, which means we can convert this into a vertex form. We can convert this into a vertex form. If we convert this into a vertex form, we're going to be like something like this. Y is equal to a times x minus p squared plus q. This is what vertex form is. A is a value of the leading coefficient which defines whether the graph goes upward or downward, but in this case it is just going to be 1 as the question mentioned. So it will just going to be y is equal to 1. We don't have to write it. There will going to be x minus p squared, but when we write it, we don't write the x value. We only write the p value. But p value should always be opposite. The p value with the sign should always be opposite with the x value, and this is how we notate it. And we know that x value is equal to 1 for the maximum minimum value as a vertex, so we can write as -1. And we have q. For q is a value of the y coordinate. The y coordinate of the vertex. So our q value will going to be 5. And this is all about the property of the vertex form. Now we convert our original form into our vertex form, which we got it y is equal to x minus 1, it should be squared, plus 5. And the difference between is that it is just a normal form, this is a vertex form. We could have converted this into a vertex form through our vertex. If there was no vertex, we could have not converted this. So, but that is equal to our original form, y is equal to x squared minus 2px plus q. Now we can do one thing from here. We know that from this vertex form, we can convert this into our original form so that we kind of know what it is to be our from original form to compare it. Y is equal to x minus 1 squared plus 5. All you have to do is extend this binomial. It will going to be x minus 1 times x minus 1 because it is a square. Square means we're multiplying the same thing. We still have our coefficient constant, which is 5. X times x will going to give us x squared. X times -1, and then -1 times x is negative x plus negative x, which will going to be negative 2x. And then we have -1 times -1, which will going to give us a positive 1. But we still have our constant, which we just write it as positive 5. What we did is we extended this form to figure out our original form. So we extended. And now we can kind of finish our forms by adding 1 and a 5. We're going to give us a positive 6, and then plus negative 2x, and then x squared. That is equal to y, which is our basic function. And if we compare with our function that are given with the unknown variables, let's write it down. Y is equal to x squared minus 2px plus q. And this is the whole point why we convert this into our vertex form. The reason why we convert to the vertex form is at first we need to use our given information, which is our vertex, and we kind of convert into the form that are familiar with us, and then we extended that format to get our original form that is exactly same with the form that are given at first. And now we have our format, and all we have to do right now is compare them to find the values. Y are same, and then 6 and the q should be same, so we got q is equal to 6. Then x squared is same, negative 2x, negative 2px should same, so negative 2x should be same with negative 2px. All you have to do is divide negative 2 to the both sides that are um, that share together. We get x is equal to px, and we need to find the value of p, which makes x is equal to x. Well, we need to input the value of 1, which we're going to make x is equal to 1 times x. So we figure out that our p value was going to be 1. But this is not our ultimate goal. Our ultimate goal is to solve for p plus q. So p plus q will going to be p value is 1 plus q value, which is 6. And it will going to give us our answer, which is 7. So we can write our answer of this question, which will going to be a positive 7.